So this is our first rally of Black History Month. As part of this, I wanted to give a quick little thing, as we always do. So we're entering Black History Month. The first things I wanted to talk about was, about 2 years ago, I started a project to share quotes and stories from Americans who were born into slavery, to give them rightful reverence in the ways we talk about people and American history specifically. So I've shared quite a lot of stories in that vein. And today I want to share a few under the idea of how we feel about our stories. We often talk about stories of the past as history. And we think about others' stories about us, and we think of the stories we tell. And when we think about that, we realize how important we are to the stories we tell. Our reasons, our purpose, our own commentary, our own beliefs. Understanding our history doesn't just mean understanding the actions that were taken, but it means understanding the people who made our history. And for this, I would like to share some information from the life and adventures of James Williams, a full book written by somebody who was born as an American slave, all about their life. And it is truly incredible. But the best thing I think I can say before we start it is to give his own author note in the book. This is how he starts it. The author, thinking an account of his life and experience would be of service to persons into whose hands it might fall, has, by the advice of some of his friends, come to the conclusion to narrate as correctly as possible things that he encountered and that came under his notice during a period of some 45 years. He hopes, after a perusal of his first attempt, the reader will pardon him for any errors which may have been committed. And if I can only think that any good may have grown out of my adventures, I shall then consider that I have commenced to answer the end I and all human beings were created for, having lived that the world may be bettered by me. That is an incredible quote, because we speak a lot about how you can't get direct history out of people in history. We speak a lot about how stories are not gospel. They cannot be exactly true, and that's for a variety of reasons we've talked about before. But here, I would like to share this statement because I think it speaks to how important it can be when we understand that these are people, and people have complex emotions. So to look into this idea that understanding the people behind history is important to understanding the actual history they make, I want to share two insights from the stories he wrote. The first, about deciding to escape. When I was 10 years old, I was a houseboy. I had to stand at the table and brush off the flies while the guests were dining. General Sue, Colonel Patridge, and others would be in conversation, talking about the slaves, and discussing what they could get for their slaves, saying that Bennett had captured one, Bill, who had run away 2 years ago, and is now in jail, and that he was the first well-dressed black person he ever met in Lombard Street, Philadelphia. And when he recognized him, he said he would come home with him and that he had no trouble getting him there. One of the men turned his head to me and said, "Tom, you must never run away. Bad boys are the only ones that run away. And when their master gets them, he will sell them to go to Georgia, where they will bore holes in your ears and plow you like a horse." Saying this for the purpose of frightening me, thinking I would believe such stories. Seeing the difference between freedom and slavery, I made up my mind that when I was old enough, I would run away. The reason I ran away when I did, because an old colored lady by the name of Rachel, who was considered to be a good old auntie, became affronted at me and misrepresented me, and told a lie on me, for which I was whipped with raw hide very severely. Perhaps here she hath gone to eternity. If so, I hope where she went she sought forgiveness, and is now resting from her labors, and the good works consummated by her are following her. Slaves at times did things which worked directly against each other, ignorantly. Be this as it may, the Creator hath a record of all transactions, and will. He says, render justice to all. I therefore leave the event to him for adjustment. My master, in conclusion, threatened to sell me to Georgia. After receiving the chastisement, I went off sniffing and crying. On the following Sunday morning, I arose quickly and gave them a leg bail for security, and on one of his blooded mares, I ran away from him. Or in other words, she done the running, and I was on her back. I was then satisfied that I was getting out of the way of the old John Thomas, instead of the old Dan Tucker, as the old song goes, where I was then. And I think that speaks to how reasons make stories so much more powerful. And I want to share one quick one that he shares later on in his story about his feelings towards slavery ending. Thank God, slavery is dead now, and we will be troubled no more with the abominable curse. And I hope the time will come when we will be on a level with the Anglo-Saxon race, and the time not far distant when we will receive full rights of American citizens. I thank God that I, who was once a slave, can lay down at night and take my rest without being afraid or molested, but can sleep with the consciousness that I am a free man and protected as such, and no longer looking towards the hills for refuge. But whom do I thank for it? Who do I praise? Or in whom do I put my trust? In the great God of heaven and of earth. And since I have put my trust in him, I must also follow him. And so long as I follow him, I will fear no evil. The God who delivered Daniel out of the den of lions is able to deliver me also. And he has delivered me and kept me until this time. And I praise him and give him thanks forever. So with that, we return to the opening quote. If I can only think that any good may have grown from my adventures, I shall then consider that I have commenced to answer the end I and all human beings were created for, having lived that the world may be bettered by me. And in that, I think those stories gain so much more power, so much more meaningfulness, not because the stories are different, but because of what we understand about the person who went through them. This person went on to not only escape with the Underground Railroad, but then go back and help more people escape. This is an American hero, someone who made our history. We can't stop at just knowing what happened in history. We need to know who made it and why they made it, why they made the decisions we did. As part of Black History Month, I think it's our responsibility to dig deeper, and dig deeper than we may have learned otherwise. This Black History Month, I hope we will all remember that without recognizing the importance about how people feel about the stories told about them, and the stories they tell, without recognizing the importance of that, we will never be able to truly understand and properly recognize American heroes like James Williams. And I think he truly is an American hero. Thank you.